I've a lot to say about this bicycle. The camera tells many lies on YouTube, particularly after dark, which is when I revealed this latest project, the beautiful 1992 Avalanche. Since then, a couple of the Dons, specifically Lance Hatch and DB's Retro MTB Workshop, have both revealed their projects, both of which in broad daylight revealed a level of polishing and attention to detail that puts mine to shame. So in that spirit of shame, I thought it was time to lay bare some truths. The first thing that horrified many of you about my previous video was my cavalier and casual approach to facts and truth. Specifically, my ignorance over whether this was a 1991 or 92 model. They do look similar, but one click on retrobike.co.uk and I could very easily have downloaded the brochures, looked at the spec lists and very quickly confirmed that this is a 1992 model. And actually within 5 minutes of examining it, it was very, very clear. There are loads of details that are telltale signs. My failure to reveal that right up front annoyed many of you, and I don't blame you, and I apologise. I realise that forensic attention to detail is what you should have come to expect from this channel, so by way of recompense, here is some. First of all, these XT shifters, every fool knows that these didn't exist in 1991. They came out in 92 to coincide with the release of the XTR group set, which famously pioneered for the first time Rapid Fire Plus, where the upshift was going one way and the release lever came the other way. The previous year, as seen on my Team Marin from 91, had both triggers in the same place. Another bending of the truth I will own up to is with regard to the name, and specifically the title of my previous video, in which I said this was the third best retro GT of the era. Of course, I'm aware that by 1992, the by then legendary GT stable also comprised the Cyclone, the Bravado, of course there was a Team Avalanche, as well as all those permutations of Zaskar and Chizang, making this far from third from top. But I will stand by my assertion, because I think a lot of those other bikes haven't stood the test of time in the same way as this has. So to my tiny mind, the three names that really survive in history are, in order, Chizang, Zaskar, Avalanche. Now for the next truth bomb. When I rebuilt this thing a week ago, I did it in some haste because all I wanted to do was get it out and ride it. And every day this week I've done that and loved it. But now if we look at it in daylight, you can see that in my haste I neglected some absolute howlers. It's mechanically flawless, of course it is. I haven't died and been replaced by an imposter. But if you look close up at some of the crust on this drivetrain, you would note that if I were to enter this thing into one of our beauty pageants, the scrutineers would not only launch this bike into a skip, but they would call the police. While my dear friend DB has been taking his derailleurs apart and cleaning every part with toothpicks, I've been out every day riding with this. Doesn't end there. This bike is not yet in Concours d'Elegance condition. But then that, I suppose, is phase two. Maybe another video on a total strip down with the usual vinegar bath and so on. There's definitely a lot more that needs doing. And did I say mechanically flawless? It does have one hidden feature that I think I might keep for the connoisseurs. So on to that all-important ride report. How does the Avalanche compare to some of the other bikes from my collection from within around a year of the same date? Well, the big marketing claim for this bike, indeed most GTs, because of the BMX heritage of the brand, was ultimate stiffness. That was the idea behind this triple triangle. That was what the adverts promised us, and I'm pleased to say that is what the engineers have absolutely delivered. This bike is rock solid. It has zero flex in any direction, and it feels indestructible, which I suppose is what you get from a bike that comes from a BMX background. That obviously has its pros and cons, by which I mean in real world riding it is an absolute bone rattler. Thank goodness for these extra fat, nice modern soft rubber tyres from Terra One. Terence, who made these tyres, he's a bit like me. He only comes out of his hiding hole maybe once a year, so these are very limited, small batch. I don't even know if any are currently available, but I love his work. So Terence, if you're watching, please make a bunch more of these tyres. They are genuinely amazing. They look cool, they're supple, they've got great grip, and of course they really work on these retro builds. I'm running this at no more than 30 psi, probably even less. Obviously I'm slightly afraid of snake bite punctures, but you need all the suspension you can get on a bike that has none. And the idea of stiffness is an interesting one. Some of the bikes from the same era that I've grown up with and loved were very much the opposite. Obviously, Dave Quinn was a frame builder with a road heritage, and he and his team knew how to make a bike that was supple and springy and forgiving. And this bike, with its spaghetti thin steel stays, and as you can see down at the fork dropout again, spaghetti thin, was very much the opposite of the idea of the GT. Rally, similarly, a brand with decades of heritage building road bikes, knew how to make a much more forgiving ride. Then you've got some real exotica like the top-end Marin and the Specialized S-Works from the same era, both of whom were brands that started in mountain biking. Neither of them ever claimed in their advertising that they were going for this kind of bomb-proof rigidity. These weren't intended to be stunt bikes. So again, a very different experience to actually ride. Next, we've got to talk about this absurd aerodynamic position from this ultra long and low stem and high saddle, which we all thought was the coolest look from all the Mint Sauce cartoons back in the day, and I still think it looks amazing. But actually, the realities of riding this geometry every day, which I've done, are not as mad as you might think. First of all, I ride road bikes all the time, and those are far more of an aero position than this is. Secondly, I'm not going to use this thing on modern mountain biking expeditions. This is just for going out, playing with the kids, commuting, looking cool on a daily short ride. And for that, it's absolutely perfect. And most importantly, it goes really fast. So the actual riding experience of this GT is genuinely unique among my collection, at least. It rides unlike any of the other bikes that I have. And for that reason alone, I'm definitely keeping it, and no, it's not for sale. But will it be a favourite? I'm afraid not. As you've probably seen from my other videos on the subject, my all-time dream early 90s bike remains, and probably always will, the Team Marin from 1991. I'm very, very proud to have it. I won't go into the details on this video, but if you are interested, there's plenty more on my channel. And of course, if you're interested in my channel, then please do the usual, hit all those bells and buttons, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.